Okay, welcome back to another episode from the Music Store. I'm Jason.
I'm Jeremy.
Yes, we are back. Jeremy is with me again this week. I was by myself last week, which was very interesting because I got to do a lot of research into college and NFL football fight songs. Yeah, it's an interesting episode. We have an interview. We are in the studio live.
It's been a minute since we've had an honest to goodness interview.
Well, you know what it is? I think we got a little bit narcissistic. I think we started liking the sound of our own voice a little too much. At least I did. My favorite thing to do is listen to the smooth,
dulcet tones,
sultry voice of myself. Hi, ladies.
Instead, we have somebody else.
We have a guest. Would you care to introduce our guest?
I'll say her first name because I won't
say her last name.
I'm not going to say her last name. I will mispronounce it. We have Monique.
Hello, Demopoulos.
Yes,
that's not that bad.
Or Demopoulos.
Yeah, see, that's where
no one pronounces it that way. It's fine.
Why don't you tell our listeners what you do for a living?
So I am the music journalist for The Sandpaper, which is an esteemed publication for the high traffic area of Long Beach Island, New Jersey. Very narrow island. But, yeah.
And that's all of our listeners live on the radio at WBNJ. I think they're pretty familiar with the Sandpaper.
They'll probably have read an article or two that you have put into print.
Yes. And for our global audience, it's a paper that really focuses on news and lifestyle in our area. But I'm going to hazard a guess that wherever you are in the world, that there are publications that you can find out about what's happening in your area.
Yeah.
From arts and culture to news and politics and crime and death and all this other stuff. But Monique's job is pretty interesting because she basically gets to go see live music and art for a living. Is that correct?
Yes. That's the really fun part of my job because I also do some general news reporting. But I started as an entertainment writer doing all kinds of art and music, and after about a year, they entrusted me to launch Sound Waves, which is the name of my music column. And it's taken some time to kind of develop my style, because I wasn't a journalist when I started working for them, and I was looking around me to see how other people were doing theirs and kind of trying to figure out how I wanted to do mine. And there's that whole, concept of being a good journalist and not infusing too much of yourself in your writing. But then there's also the column writer. It really is kind of a more personal thing. So I feel like 2024, I'm coming more into, I've been infusing a lot more of myself into my writing.
So what I find interesting about this is a lot of the guests that we have interviewed have ended up in careers in and around music, but they're all unconventional stories as to how they got there. So what we like to do is try to ask how exactly you ended up there and see then if there's any suggestions or thoughts you might have for if there's a kid listening somewhere and it's being like, you know what, I'd love to write articles about music. That sounds like a killer job. So you said something interesting. You said you were not a journalist. This was not what you. So how did you get there?
It's such a long-winded, crazy story, but so I've always been in kind of an entertainment field. I was a fine art model for about 16 years. That's what I did prior to coming in, but I've always been a writer my whole life. I write poetry, I write short and long form. I went to college for philosophy and linguistics.
Ah, cool.
And then but at that time, my modeling career, which I was using to fund my education, kind of took off, and I was traveling the world at the time. And so I kind of ran with that because I was traveling and having a great time doing it. And then after almost a decade, I was coming back to New Jersey because my grandfather was sick and needed to be taken care of, and he's my favorite human, so that was my responsibility. And I was also looking to get out of the modeling industry, which can be kind of toxic. There's a lot of rewarding, fulfilling parts of it, especially in the fine art world. creating amazing things. It's just like music. But the industry as a whole can be very, very toxic and wear you thin. So I was looking to get out of that. And Victoria Ford, who is the arts editor for the Sandpaper, I had met her the previous year. I think it was 2017. She's an artist. She's an incredible artist. And she came to a local Pine Shores Art Association, actually, to draw. And I was the model. And everyone was asking me, because I had just come home from being somewhere abroad. And people are asking me questions about it. And she's like, whoa, wait a minute. I need to write a story about this. And we become friends because we were both newly sober, clicked, on that. We clicked in the whole art thing. I love posing for her. She's an incredible artist. And so she writes a story about me. And then the next year she was looking for freelancers to do music reviews. And I was like, that's my jam.
Oh,
Let's go. So I started writing freelance for the Sandpaper. And then Victoria became pregnant and they needed someone to kind of become Victoria for a while. So then that was me. And it's so funny because I was actually studying for my GRE. I was going to go back. I was going to apply to Princeton to try and get my PhD in philosophy. And then COVID happened. As I'm standing in for Victoria, COVID happens. GRE testing shuts down. Princeton shuts down. Everything shuts down. And I kind of became a central figure on the team. So now it's been 5 years and I'm still there. And since then I've developed, a column.
I would imagine if you're the person writing articles about music and art and bands and performances and venues also about where they happen, that you must get bombarded.
Yes and no. I would say one of the downsides is I tried to launch a Facebook group for the area because, we're kind of a regional paper. I really want to focus on local music wherever I can because we have a lot of amazing talent here and they deserve to be celebrated. So I started this group hoping that people would pitch new bands and, say, oh, we're working on an upcoming album. And then it ended up being so many, and I'm sorry, no offense, but also offense, retired guys, retired gigging guys who have a pension, but every week they're just posting a flyer of their gigs. And it's like, and I've said time and again, this is not what this group is for. We already know who you are and what you're doing.
Right, yeah, there's no discovery there.
Yeah, and actually one of the things that I do with the paper is I also put all the entertainment listings in the calendar. So it's like, yeah, we already know where you're playing, Jim, to just use a generic dad name. We already know where
Generic Jim.
Generic Jim, and let's... So anyway, that Facebook group is still there, but it's like a graveyard where gyms go to die.
Yeah.
So yes and no. But then I always find I'm like meeting people in the most organic way, kind of the way that we met. And now I'm like, how did we even meet?
I have no idea. I think you just showed up in my store when I opened up and it was just me or maybe Jeremy had just started.
Yeah.
I think the buzz of a new music store being in the area kind of prompted either it was the Sandpaper people or you yourself to come in and be like, hey, oh my goodness, music store.
I think I was driving by, now that I think, and it was the same thing when you opened the cafe across the street. I was just driving by and I was like, oh my God, this is what we need.
Yeah.
We need a venue that's going to focus on, not just the top 40 classic rock cover bands.
Being somebody who's lived in cities for like the past literally 35 years of my life, I get this image of you like crawling down alleys trying to find these hidden jazz clubs where there's jams or something to uncover these gems of music and culture that, usually all start movements that don't want anybody to know about their existence in the first place. Right. And you're trying to discover it. And then generic Jim shows up.
And then generic Jim's like, hey, what's up? I'm playing at the local dive. Same Jimmy Buffett covers as last time.
Oh, don't get me started.
Yeah.
Although I think you did say once you would take $500 to wear the Hawaiian shirt to do one set of Jimmy Buffett tunes. On one of the shows, I asked you that.
I did say that?
You did say you take the $500, yeah.
It's a pretty solid price. It's like...
Yeah.
It's like whenever anybody has ever requested me to play like Margaritaville, Brown Eyed Girl, or Mustang Sally, I'd be like, "Yo, that's like a $2 song."
Right.
Yes.
They're like, "What's a bill?" $100.
$100. Are you the one that told me they wanted $50 to play the Skinner Sweet Home Alabama? Is that you that has a $50 tip requirement for Sweet Home Alabama?
Actually, I do something a little nasty, not to take away from interviewing Monique. But
thanks for coming, Monique.
Yeah.
We'll see you
I get a request for one of the most requested songs of all time, and you name it, Skinner's Sweet Home Alabama, fine song, but gets requested a lot. I actually go to the audience after getting a request like that, and you can insert your Jesse's Girl, whatever you want, and I go, okay, everyone, I got $5 to play Jesse's Girl. Who's giving me 10 to not want to hear Jesse's Girl?
Oh, I like this.
And
Reverse psychology.
It worked one day a little too well, and someone got very angry with the group because it worked, and then they didn't want to hear the song being played by some cover band for the 1,000th time on their week-long vacation to Long Beach Island, and they put in like $50 to not hear, and I don't remember the name of the song.
Genius. How do you make money to not play music?
Oh yeah,
That's
I was on it so quick. Like my bass player was like got red in the face because he couldn't believe that I had the audacity to be like, what am I going to get to not play this song, folks? Got a request for this tune. Don't want to play it. And then I get like $50. And no one was a 50 spot. Boom, put it right in there.
That's
I was like,
awesome.
Sorry, lady.
I got to figure out a way to start doing that.
We're not playing that. Well, I think you have to have a lack of respect for your audience. No,
I've been there.
Is it a lack of respect for your audience or just a substantial amount of self-respect, right?
Well, she's a philosophy major.
Yeah, there you go.
She's doing this to us.
That's really what it comes down to. It's like, you don't need to hear me play this. Like, you could very well go listen to this on a jukebox. And I'm not, like, it's like, I don't pander to my audience. I pretty much play what my drummer, my bass player, and I want to play.
Yeah.
And luckily, everyone's along for the ride, and they all enjoy it. But then all of a sudden, you get smacked with this, like, what about our band says that we would play that song? Like, you've heard our repertoire. It's like, you think, and it's like, and of course, it's an easy song. It's, but I digress.
So she's now Monique's interview. How did you become the subject of the interview?
That's because she's such a good reporter.
She's such a good... All right, Monique.
That's what I'm here for.
She knows how to spark the question.
My boyfriend Ty Mares, he has a similar amount of self-respect, and plays completely different style of music from you. But people will come up and say, "Sweet Caroline" or "Brown Eyed Girl." I think you've already rattled these off, and he's like, "No."
What kind of music do you like? So you're out there, going to shows. Let's say there's like a decent performance, maybe something that's original, but it's not in your wheelhouse. Like, let's say there's the International Polka Festival, and you've been tasked with going to spend the entire Saturday and Sunday listening to all the polka bands at the Polka Festival.
Yeah.
How do you separate your personal preferences and balance objective and subjective thoughts and behaviors? Miss Philosophy.
It's actually easier when it's not my jam. It's easier to write about because I can be super objective and because it happens all the time, right? Because we are a free publication, which is amazing in a world where print is kind of dying, or it's becoming like virtual clickbait garbage. Right. So we do have to, we don't pander, but we have to be fair to all of the different venues, right? And there are certain venues that they just do reggae or they just do party bands. And that's part of, fortunately, I feel like now I'm to a place where a lot of that stuff can be delegated to the summer freelancers and I don't have to do as much of those. But when I have to cover somebody that it's just really not my jam, it's so much easier actually, because it takes, I can still go in with an open mind and I just try to find the things that do resonate with me, and I celebrate that. Yeah, it's actually so much, when I really love something, it's so much harder because I really want to do them justice. And it's almost like,
but at the same time, you have to be like, okay, this was maybe not your best show, or something happened, or...
Are we talking about polka, or are we talking about my jam?
Your jam. So like you do go to a show that's something you're totally stoked about, but maybe we've all had off nights. Maybe it's just an off night and the band kind of sucks. But you really want them to be great. So are you honest with yourself? You're like, this was kind of sucky, but I really like them? Or do you just say, oh, they're so awesome?
Yeah, it kind of depends on what it is that goes wrong, right? So, if what went wrong is a sound issue, and that happens a lot because there's a sound tech monopoly in this area, and I will say nothing more about it. But when sound is bad, there's not a lot. You have to improvise, and so if that's the issue, I'm like, cool, no problem, as long as it wasn't user error. But when it's like the performance, or like the band leader gets way too drunk or something. Yeah, it kind of just depends on the situation. Then I'll try and focus more on the things that are great. I try not to tear people to shreds, especially because it's a local. I was going
to say, yeah.
I have a question. Is there any kind of directive that you're given, or is there like a parameter that you're trying to stay within? Not that you have to stay 100% positive the whole time, but like you're giving an honest critique, but also trying to like draw people into a particular place. Are you given a guideline?
It's so funny. I've gotten so many mixed messages from different superiors at work. Because it's a balance. In anything you do, you have to be and want to be honest. But you also don't want to just totally trash a place or a band. And so that's where I'm at a point where, especially with my column, I can kind of choose what to cover, and I won't choose polka. I would probably choose polka over Jimmy Buffett, to be totally fair. Like, since we're just on that, I'm sorry, I know, rest in peace. But, it's a balance of like, don't trash this venue. And there are venues where I'm like, I really hate this place.
So in those cases, will you do the old, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all, and just not do the article and be like, I think it's just best for everybody, we don't do this? Yeah,
there are certain people who kind of get put on my desk, and I'll just tell my boss, there's just no way I will not write about this person, because I have nothing nice to say, and I'd rather not say something nice than to be that person.
So, and I guess this is relatively area specific question, but I would say in this area, and I'm not sure how far they're sending you to go to check out a band, but there's not that many honest to goodness, what I would consider venues left in this particular area. To me, a venue is a place where you don't bring your own sound equipment.
Yes.
And there's only a few where you don't have to do that.
Right.
So they're sending you to a lot of places where it's like, the band is an afterthought. It's where they're going to set up is an afterthought.
So you're talking about like at a VFW hall and that kind of thing?
Or you're just like, it's a
corner
bar.
Of a restaurant.
And you're a restaurant, and it's like...
They didn't build a stage there.
There's a corner for you over there, and it's like the worst sounding room. So like...
People are playing pool like right behind the guitarist. It's so weird.
Is that what you're... is that a challenge in terms of how whatever's being presented to you, does it affect your... Do you find it, or do you try to look past that when you're writing about it?
Yeah, and again, it kind of depends on the band and the venue. And again, fortunately, now it's been like 5 years. I have this column, and I'm able to really write my column the way I want. But that doesn't mean I'm not doing like the entertainment. I'm filling up that entertainment section in the summer with the freelancers. And that means, going to the club, and I'm not going to name any names, but, going to the place where it's the party band. I'm fortunately finally at a place where I can be a little more choosy because we have those freelancers and they're happy to do that because they're all in, they're in college and they're just making some extra money and they love that stuff. But yeah, especially now being in a relationship with a musician who feels the same way you do about it, and going into a place where like he's performing and they've hired his whole band, but they're all standing against a wall in a corner. It's so bizarre, right? But then he'll be getting ready to go to a show, and I can see the light leaving his eyes as he's getting ready to go because it's like he knows he's playing in a corner. Right. But then he comes home and he's like, I made amazing tips. So many people came up to me and gave me great feedback. And it's the same in what I'm doing, right? Because the band is going to be good if it's a good band, no matter what, no matter where they're standing. And I think that's one of the cool things about this area is that even though you have those bar gigs that are just so kind of draining, emotionally taxing, it's cool that we have the opportunity to make a living playing music, right? And that comes with good and bad side effects, because that also means that any gym who learns 3 hours of music, no matter how terrible,
help fill the hole of the need of
can fill that spot. But it also means the people who are career musicians and who really have that drive, they're tuning up every single night. And I'm getting to meet those people. And this is a high traffic tourist area. Who knows who's walking into some of these places? Like, you never know. Yeah. And then obviously with the advent of social media, also good and evil aspects to it. But it also means anyone can go up at any time.
Right. And
so hopefully, just like the people listening to this, maybe they'll pick up a sandpaper, or maybe they'll get online, because we are online as well, sandpaper.net, and see some of these bands, because some of these bands are awesome.
So let me ask you this. Give us do's and don'ts for a young band, let's say original or cover, who says, okay, I live in this area, I grew up in this area, we're original band, we're trying to get our act together, like maybe they did a record or something, like, and I want to submit to the Sandpaper to write an article about me and my band. Do's and don'ts on how to get Monique to pay attention. Well, no, because this is important for every band and musician, anybody who's listening who's looking for press. I mean, Monique has been kind enough to write some great articles about us, for which I've never asked her to do, so I feel blessed in that regard. But there are times when a band needs to say, like, okay, we're ready to go.
Yeah.
Please review our record, or please review our performance. And there are ways to go about doing that, and there are ways to not do that and have a positive. So maybe you could comment on that. Do's and don'ts.
Sure. Do's, definitely do you, right? Like, be yourself kind of thing. I mean, I'm way more likely to be drawn to a band if they're doing their own thing. And that's not to say you can't do, like a tribute to someone else. If it's really good, then hell yeah. And if that's what you do, then great. But definite don't. So I feel like a lot of young people get caught in this trap of they think they need to appease every audience member, to the point of like, I will play any request, even if I don't know it. I will try learning it on the spot. And I get, when you're learning, that's a really cool way to like stay on your toes. But I don't know, join a jam band if you're trying to do that. And I love jam bands, so maybe that's my bias. But trying to learn a song on the spot when you've never heard it, it makes you sound bad. And it's really hard for me as a music reviewer to, it's like, well, A for effort, and then also, along that same vein, when you go to some of these venues where they're family friendly and they have kids, and now you're doing Baby Shark and you're doing Let It Go and all these like, okay. So
wait, you actually seen somebody perform Baby Shark?
Yes.
You got to tell me where you see them so I can go to those places, or at least demand more money. Here's what you're not going to get from me, everyone.
Yes. Yeah. It's like, and I've seen really talented, amazing people do that. And it's because they're young and they just want to be liked. And so they're like, I'll play anything that you want me to play. But it's almost like I think if I could give advice to like a young musician, it's have some self-respect and know that people are going to respect you for having solid boundaries. Because when you start pandering to everyone in your audience, you lose that sense of identity and that sense of self. You just become that like terrible diner that's serving like every kind of food and none of it's good. So
that's not the answer I was expecting, but it was a good answer.
Cool.
It's funny. Like sometimes I'll ask a question, but I'm like convinced that what I think the answer should be is the correct answer.
Right.
So I just experienced that. I had in my head what I think is the correct answer.
Yeah. What would you say?
So I'm now getting, because we have the cafe, Waterview Cafe here in Barnegat, and we are doing live music. Mm-hmm. I'm starting to be approached about shows that we're doing, but we're doing non-conventional stuff. So like the generic gym, which, by the way, that's just beautiful. There's no play. Just I won't have it because it's everywhere. But my big don't is don't make me spend 2 seconds trying to figure out or watch or do what you're talking about.
Yeah.
If you say, like, I want to perform or whatever, I need your name, a link to your Facebook, a link to your Instagram, a link to hear your music. If I have to click more than once to find anything, forget it.
Press
Won't
kits. Do it. Press kits are awesome. I would say that as well is rather than building a 700 song set list that you're like, oh, this is what I hate when I see that stuff on websites, when I just see like, this is what you can expect me to play, or choose from one of these 10 million songs, which, I mean, look, I'm not gigging, so who am I?
But that's specific to cover bands and tribute bands, where it's like, obviously we're not talking about original bands at that point. But,
right.
But my whole thing is, and it's a very good point,
send a press kit.
Make everything clear, concise. Mm-hmm. Less is more, obviously, I think.
Exactly. Yeah, I love when someone sends me a press kit and it's like a video of them playing, or a Spotify playlist, or like, this is who I am and you can hear it right now. I will respond to that so much more. Even the touring acts, because I get a lot of like press kits from big, not big, but big,
regional.
Next tier up, regional or national.
Touring,
yeah.
National or international, but they're in that smaller circuit. They're not like A-list or anything like that. But I get a lot of press kits, and you can just tell that whoever their agent is did it himself and isn't a writer. And it's this like 7-page biography, and it's like, he's played with X, Y, and Z, and it's all about like who the people have shared a stage with, but no music. It's like the music should be the first thing that I'm seeing and hearing. It shouldn't be like,
right.
Well, one time I opened for CCR in 1977. And it's like, cool. I like CCR as much as the next guy, but what are you playing? Are you playing CCR covers, or are you playing your own music? And like, what is the music?
Have you ever been asked to do like a side hustle to do writing for bands or performers, and do press kits and communications and marketing or whatever?
Yeah, I actually, yes. I've definitely done, I've built people's websites for them with the press kit in mind, because I have a unique perspective on that. Like, I know what someone who, and of course I'm not working for the Rolling Stone, and that's probably for the best, but I know what someone would want to see first.
Right.
So yeah, I have definitely built people's websites, sometimes for a favor and sometimes for a fee, or done their social media for them, or even just written posts for them, because they're like, hey, I'm a musician, but I'm not a writer, and this is what I'm trying to convey. Can you help me convey it? I've done stuff like that. Yeah.
So I have 2 questions.
Sure.
First one's serious. The second one's silly.
Let's go to 2.
So we've got, I like to say it's not a dead area, right? cover bands aside, in this area and the different venues, I know the Lizzie Rose, and I know Bird and Betty's has original acts too. What do you think is since you're seeing it a lot, what's the tone of the area? In case someone's listening in this area and goes, they don't know, you have a good beat on that. What is there a shift towards a particular sound? Is it going in a particular direction? Because I don't know.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, actually, because tone in general. So something I just wrote, this is a little bit of an aside, but my last column was all about this resurgence in original music. I feel like Chris Fritz, he just like launched this singer-songwriter thing, and it was packed, which is cool to see. I mean, because it's all the cover guys that everybody knows forever, but people came out to hear their music, which is kind of encouraging. And then another one was launched like just for women and what they're doing. And, a whole variety of stuff, a whole variety of skill level too, and just experience level. But it's cool to see that people are receptive to it and that people are actually going out to hear. But as far as a tone, that's really interesting because there's like 3 different like demographics when it comes to original music. So like Bird and Betty's and those kind of venues, they're really like leaning towards surf rock and reggae, which is cool. It's
They have the beach thing going on.
It's like they're trying. Well, I think also that's the owners. That's their jam. So it's like, if that's your jam, cool. And also they probably know that their clientele, that's what they're coming for. And then they do their late night like DJ stuff, which, that's what the kids are into. Mm-hmm. But then there's like Lizzie Rose. They're doing the traveling. Some of the stuff's original and some of it's like a review, kind of like the Ray-Bans when you do the Buddy Holly type thing. So that's like the mix that they're doing. And it seems like they're really into like, they have their genres. They have like their blues, their, I don't know, their Linda Ronstadt review, their Janis Joplin people. And then they have like the original Dana Fuchs is one example.
Yeah. She was just there.
Yep. Yeah. And she's awesome. And, but they definitely, it almost seems like they have a very specific thing that they're trying to fill. Right. So like, for a little while, I was doing like email correspondence for Cosmic Jerry Band. So my boyfriend Ty, he is the guitarist for that band. And we reached out to them and they were like, well, we already have a Dead band. But do they do Talking Heads? And I was like,
back to our original part of the conversation.
Yeah.
and Baby Shark.
Right. It was
like,
just,
oh, you're a musician? Do you bake too?
Right. Exactly.
Because we need a good baker.
And like, that's cool. I mean, they honestly, they do some Talking Heads, but they're not going to give you like a Talking Heads review. They're a jam band. And, so they have their thing and the Dead band that they have is Dead Grass, which is cool, but it's a bluegrass take on the Grateful Dead, which is cool.
Which is super cool, but it's definitely it's a whole different thing.
It's not dead. It's not the same. It's not.
Yeah. It's like the, Mud McCree's Uptown Jug Band kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
The OGs.
Yeah.
So, and then what was the other thing that I was even thinking
You're saying
about?
3 pockets.
So the third pocket would be the like Asbury Park circulation. Mm-hmm. And that's where you're seeing a lot of the cool original stuff come out of it. And you're also seeing some of the like pretentious, like, my dad sponsors me kind of, homegrown people. But then you're also seeing a lot of really cool fusions of stuff. Cause I think we're in that generation of music where people are just melding so many different kinds of music together. And that's really cool. So you're seeing people that are playing like at Stone Pony and they're playing at the Asbury Lanes and they have a really original sound, but they're not really like circulating anywhere else, which is kind of a cool place to be, and which is why I feel like you see a lot more young people than the people getting into their 30s, because it's like, all right, this is cool and everything, but I need to pay my mortgage. So the hope is that you kind of transcend from that place to like the next, which is that like touring, national touring thing, which is what you guys are doing, which is so cool.
Yeah, a little bit here and there.
What was the silly question?
So when you're talking about, Rolling Stone, immediately the first thing that comes to my mind is the movie Almost Famous.
Yeah.
And where the one classic scene where the singer is reading some of the work of the guy writing for them, and he's like, well, wait a minute, I can be incendiary too.
Oh,
do
my
you
gosh.
have any, when people have either read your work about their group, or have you had anybody who, and you don't have to name names, but
Right.
has it happened where you've gotten someone who wished you wrote something different or was just totally put off by what you wrote? Has that ever happened before?
Yes. The most notable thing actually was a venue that I will not name, but the venue owner wrote me a series of angry emails because
I know what she's talking about.
yeah, the singer. So I reached out ahead of time and I said, I'm really interested in covering the show. I noticed you're doing shows, but they were only every once in a while. So I was like, I'm going to come and cover this singer, and did a really big feature. Featured her show, featured the venue and all of the things, the cool things they offer. And then I got this just angry just diatribe about I focused too much on the artist who would be nowhere without me.
Oh, jeez.
One of those. It was really bizarre. And to the point where I kind of had to just put that person in their place. And it ended okay, I guess. I've never really had that situation with artists before, but one of my colleagues did with a musician who shall go unnamed because he's
Taylor
terrible.
Swift?
Right? Oh my gosh. It would be so much easier if it was Taylor Swift, right? But just wrote it just kind of tore her to shreds because she didn't celebrate him as much as he wanted to be celebrated. It was a great piece. It's just ego when you see stuff like that. It's like, write your own. That is something that I do get a lot. I get a lot of people who you can tell they send me something and it's almost like they want me to just publish that. And
I did your job for you.
But they're
Right.
But I'm just going to argue though, because you will find articles that say if you want somebody to write about you, almost try to write the article for them so they don't have to do that much work. Like,
I think people are so afraid of being like misinterpreted or something. And I get it. We're all artists. And even my story when I was modeling that was written about me, there were parts of the story where the writer took her own twist on who I am. And it's kind of like that jam where, yeah, if someone else wrote the story, it would have been a completely different story. And there's kind of a beauty to that. Me as I'm a very specific listener, but the way I write something is going to be completely different. I'm going to pick up on totally different aspects of your performance than even my colleague, and we work for the same publication. So, yeah.
let's say there is a college age kind of kid exploring Asbury Park and all the clubs there and finding cool bands, and he writes an article about a band because this person wants to be somebody who reviews music.
Yeah.
And they send you an article and a picture, and it is a well-written article. Mm-hmm. Like, they actually write the article and be like, there's this great group of bands, and here's the thing. Here's a link to listen to them. Is there ever a case where you'd say, this is a really great story by somebody who wants to break into the industry?
Yeah.
I'm going to publish it.
Yeah. The unfortunate thing is that, so our coverage zone it goes from Forked River, and that's even a stretch, to New Gretna.
Well, the space doesn't matter.
So,
Just
but
the
yeah,
idea that
if
somebody
it's
says,
a local, if it's a local thing, which, if it's a local band and they're playing in Asbury, that's different. If it's somebody that's from here, that's cool. That's a kind of a big deal. And yeah, so if somebody submits something, if it's summer and we're paying freelancers anyway, it's, that could be cool.
Do you have to pay? If I were to write a great article about Jeremy's Jimmy Buffett Polka Band and send you the article, so maybe you would but if I wasn't expecting any kind of compensation, does that change the parameters on whether or not you would publish the article?
That's a little above my pay grade, and it kind of just depends on the scenario. So, like, we generally do pay people for their work unless they're, like, an unpaid intern. And even in that case, I feel like they're usually getting paid by, like, a grant or something. And it's, like, you're not making a killing. It's paid by the word. But I think, you know, for my column specifically, if someone sent me something, like, obviously I'm not going to publish word for word, but Chris Fritz, he's a vinyl guy. He loves vinyl. And so every once in a while, I'll do a little segment in my column called For the Record. And
Gotcha.
and he gives me basically his piece, and it goes in there, and it's not paid because it's just like, that's just what he loves to do.
Right.
And it is a small contribution to my story, but I always credit him, right? And I kind of interpret it like, you know, Fritz, this is what he's spinning and why. And I think it's kind of cool because he listens, he's like me, he listens to everything, but also the things that he absolutely loves are very different from the things from my thing. So it's kind of cool to like hear from the perspective of, you know, like a 50-year-old guy as opposed to a millennial woman. So, but yeah, so it kind of depends. But we also have like an editorial, like people submit stories and, you know, interesting stories and editorial pieces. And I think those are also paid by the word. And we're always looking for stuff like that, especially in the summertime. So yeah, but hey, if there are people who love music or love art and entertainment, definitely submit a resume and a written piece, because we're always looking for those people in the summertime. And of course, it's never like ultimately up to me. It's more up to Victoria, who's the art editor.
I think the work that you're doing is really phenomenal.
Thank you.
You've been a good friend of Waterview, so we appreciate that. Thank you. And definitely want to have you back.
Everyone knows where they can find us, right?
Google Waterview Music and Waterview Cafe and Waterview Art. You'll get links to the Sandpaper online.
Or you can check out Monique's articles. And if you're vacationing in this area, be sure to pick up a Sandpaper.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to try to get a good beat on what's going on, you will go to the entertainment arts section, and there you'll find all of her body of work.
Yeah, thesandpaper.net. Don't omit the. And I also have started writing for Rootfire, which is a reggae publication. So check me out there as well.
We'll have to talk about that.
Yeah.
And if anybody else wants to hear a replay of this show or any of our other shows, Jeremy,
they can go to fromthemusicstore.com. It's very important. From the music store.
That's FROM.
FROM, not FRUM.
Yes.
FROM, themusicstore.com, and also anywhere else where you may hear a podcast.
Miss Monique, thank you so much.
Thank you for
We'll talk to
having
you
me.
soon. Okay.